Ymir Fritz, one of the important characters from Attack on Titan, has always been pretty much kept in the dark. Like, not many people understand this character or even care about her because everything related to her is very confusing. Be it her personality, backstory, her ambitions, and goals, nothing seems normal. For example, even after all the suffering Karl Fritz gave her, and after becoming so powerful, she still came back to Karl Fritz to serve him, and Karl treated her as just a weapon. Still, she gave her life for him, and even after dying, still remained a slave of Karl's words. And her entire life is full of stuff like this, which brings a question to our minds that do all of that even serve any meaning, or they are just ordinary plot devices? So the answer is yes. All those actions which she took in her life have very deep meaning and symbolism of freedom, and are not that hard to understand. You just need to think about it for a while and you may get an answer to that. And everyone's interpretation of her life could vary person to person because her story is designed that way by the author, yet kept it very open. And in this video, I'll share with you my interpretation of Ymir Fritz, first founding titan of the story, which I believe is true and legit. But again, as I said, all of that can vary individually, so you can share your thoughts as well related to her in the comments. As of now, let's understand Ymir Fritz in detail in this video. So let's begin. Ymir Fritz was born and raised in an unnamed village. Right from the beginning, she was a very introverted girl. She never really used to talk much and always kind of used to be in her own space. And one day, Karl Fritz came with his army and took control of the entire village and made everybody there his slaves, including Ymir. And he was even celebrating it with his team and some women, while also kissing them, which was seen by Ymir. And now this is a very important part of her characterization because this was the very first time she was introduced to the concept of romance or love, and seeing that made her feel like maybe it is what people call love. Those actions of Karl Fritz, she thought of it as literal love, because she has never really seen the world outside her village nor anything outside her private space. How do families be with each other? How does a couple love each other? How do parents love their children? She was not familiar to any of those things. Her entire life and space was just a village and struggling for food and water, and that's it. For her, life was just limited to that. But after seeing Karl kissing his girls, she was introduced to something very new outside her life, which she liked as well and wanted it too. And from here, like the rest of the villagers, she started to live as a slave and of course wanted to get out of this kind of life and wanted a family or someone she could love. Because all her life, she has always been someone who just obey the orders of others. Mostly in her life, she has been somewhat like a slave and she considered that aspect her entire life. But after witnessing that celebration of Karl, a need for something emerged in her. Someone to love or someone to love her, a peaceful life where she has money, food and power of her own, and of course someone to love. A need for a better life emerged in her. Then one day, at night, she was just passing by and saw pigs caged in their pig pen, and she freed them, and the reason she did that is maybe because she somewhat saw herself in them, as she is a slave as well. And now she understands the pain of being caged or being ordered, so of course she felt bad for them, so she freed them. And when Karl Fritz got to know about it, he called all the villagers to ask who did it, and everyone pointed their fingers at Ymir. And it is not revealed that how the people got to know about it, but as they were slave and none of them wanted to get punished, so all of them collectively pointed at Ymir because she's just a girl and there is basically nothing she can do to defend her. Even though maybe they didn't know about it, she's exactly the one who has done it. But after this, Karl freed her, but it wasn't very practical as he also sent his men to hunt her. And after being severely injured, she took shelter in the trunk of a giant tree and then fell under there, and she reached the bottom at water level and was suffocating. And then a centipede-like creature came within dark and fused with her, which gave birth to the first Titan user in the history of the world. But even after she became so powerful, she went back to Karl Fritz and decided to become his slave again. Now of course, this sequence is very confusing. Like, why would you go back to the person who gave you so much suffering and treated you like literally an animal? Does this sequence actually hold any meaning, or is it just a plot device? So yeah, this sequence has a very deeper meaning. The reason she still went back to him is maybe because she just doesn't understand the life outside enslavement anymore. I know this can be confusing to understand, so let us understand it with an example. Imagine there's an animal which has been caged for years in a zoo. That animal will obviously crave for freedom more than anything. And one day it got its desired freedom but was unable to compensate with the freedom he got. Because even after gaining freedom, a completely new world and threats appears in front of it, which makes it extremely confusing for the animal to compensate. So much that it starts to make it feel unsafe, and also the fact that it has been a slave for so long that it has literally no idea about how to live outside enslavement. it will return back to the place he is more familiar to, which is the zoo, mostly because of safety and security. And it's the very same case with Ymir, where she has no idea about how to live outside enslavement and what to do with her power, because as in the beginning I said that all her life she has always been very much in her own space, just struggling for food and water in the village, and for her life was just that. She doesn't know a thing outside her village, and after she got enslaved, she craved for freedom, and once she got it, with power in her hands, she just didn't know what to do about it. She was so confused that it may even have scared her, even with all the power she has got, because she just has no idea what to do with that freedom and power. These are the symptoms of Stockholm Syndrome. This term refers to a psychological response where a captive or slave develops positive feelings towards their captor. Often as a coping mechanism, the captive may come to sympathize with their captor's views and even defend them. But as I previously said that apart from freedom, she craved for something more, which was love or someone to love. And now that she has power, the most powerful man she knows is Karl Fritz. Maybe now she would be worth it for him and he would accept her and love her. With that hope and also not knowing what to do with her freedom, she went back to Karl Fritz, where Karl Fritz of course accepted her and made her his concubine. A concubine is a woman who cohabits with a man to whom she is not legally married, often regarded as socially or sexually subservient. In some societies, particularly in the past, concubines lived with a man in addition to his wife or wives, but held a lower social status. But Ymir was still okay with it because all this felt right to her, because in the beginning, as I said, when she looked at Karl Fritz celebrating with her girls, she took a completely different meaning of love. And the way Karl Fritz behaved with her and just used her as a weapon, and she was just a concubine. All of this felt right to her because she has never been exposed to the truest form of life. All her life has been very conservative, very much in her own space, and the fact the way she is living now is much better than the way she was living earlier, which made her happy and developed a type of psychology of hers that this is it. This is the ultimate. Life can't get any better than this. And even she loved Karl Fritz because this is what she thought of love. For her, this was what true love is, and as there was no one to correct her and teach her the right things, she continued to believe it. This shows that even a fraction of a good life can be so much for someone who has never been exposed to it. And with Karl Fritz, she spent 13 years in which Karl Fritz utilized Ymir Fritz's Titan powers to establish and expand Eldia by turning her into a tool for his ambitions, using her powers to cultivate land, build infrastructure, and amass wealth for the Eldians, and had 3 kids with her and named them Maria, Rose, and Sheena. Then one day a group of Marlian soldiers came to surrender to Karl Fritz, and while they were going to him, one soldier suddenly stood up and threw a spear towards Karl Fritz, and to save him, Ymir took that spear on her and it went directly through her heart, which made it very difficult for her to regenerate and transform into a titan, and she died there. But Karl Fritz made her 3 daughters eat Ymir's corpse to preserve the powers of titans. And as all 3 of them ate Ymir's corpse, the powers of titans got split and gave birth to other titans, such as the attack titan, female titan, etc. And while Karl Fritz was on his deathbed, he told her daughters to continue to reproduce as much as possible, and also to pass the powers of titans generation to generation and maintain the dominance of Eldia. And here the subjects of Ymir originated. Basically, all the descendants of Ymir are called subjects of Ymir, and those who are in the lineage of the founding titan are categorized as royal blood. Although Ymir might have died, but her consciousness was transferred into the paths. Now of course, what are paths? What exactly is this place? So paths in Attack on Titan are not fully explained, but it could be speculated that it has to do something with the powers of the founding. Paths originally are a separate dimension itself where all the consciousness of subjects of Ymir meets. Now how did this appear and Ymir consciousness came here? This has not been explained. The only speculation could be that the founding titan is so powerful that it has a separate dimension of itself, where all those who are connected to the founding, their consciousness meets here after death, and as Ymir was the first user of it, even after her death, her consciousness was still active there, and there she still remained a slave of Karl Fritz's order, where everything related to titans she used to operate from here, be it healing them, making them, everything, and all of this was okay to her, because this is what she thought of it as life now. As I said earlier, that she never really got to know about the truest form of life, so for her this is what life or freedom truly is, being just a slave of her master's order. She continued to be like this for over 2000 years until Eren Yeager came into her life, where he finally explained to her what freedom truly is, and she has been just a slave for so long and explained about the things she genuinely wants, which she could never think about. As for all those decisions, she took help from someone else. Like when she first got her freedom and that kind of power, she didn't know what to do with it, So she went to Karl Fritz and did exactly what he told her to do for the rest of her life, which never really generated a curiosity within her for the things she wants, because every time someone else took that decision for her. But at this point, when Eren asked her to end this all, he left that decision to take by herself only, without any external pressure, because he didn't really force her as well. This was the first time in her life she got to make a decision for herself without anyone forcing her, which brought tears to her eyes because now she finally understood the real meaning of freedom, being able to make decisions for yourself without being forced by anyone. This is the true form of freedom really is. To which she was of course very much grateful to Eren, and that's why she helped him to end it all and gave full authority over the founding while also rejecting Zeke's order, who was a royal blood. For the first time in her life, she was finally free, and after all this ended, at the brink of her life, she again saw two people kissing, and by this, she also understood the true meaning of love, which she misunderstood in the beginning, where love just doesn't involve lust but also respect for the other partners. And as Eren the Founding died, the powers of Titans also vanished from the world, meaning Ymir seeing Mikasa kissing Eren was the last moment of her consciousness, where she finally understood the world outside her private space and of course found peace. Her characterization is something you may find very confusing, but if you just think about it, you start to understand how deep that is. Probably one of the deepest characterizations in the show and in anime overall. And the kind of character she is, her characterization can be interpreted in many ways, but more or less it will mostly remain like this. And if you have a different interpretation of her characterization, then be free to share it in the comment section. And if you are confused regarding why Eren killed her own mother, then you can check out this video. I have explained everything in detail. Thank you.